Ciao Milanisti. That this ain't gonna be the usual post-match reaction because that game was so devoid of anything. There's literally nothing I can cover beyond the goal, and obviously like a few things to call out. But yeah, 1-1 Atalanta away. In the grand scheme of things, the result, if you take it from a fixture list perspective of the season, is not bad. It's actually not bad at all, but it's the context of the post Pisa game and the performance in itself, which was devoid of any creativity and coming away with more questions than answers. In particular, for potentially more injuries, who knows? But we're gonna go into a little bit of that more so than the actual game itself and what we saw on the pitch, which was not convincing. Look, a 1-1 draw away to Atalanta in most seasons, particularly last couple of seasons, would not be considered a poor result. The nature of it, not great, I have to say. Look, the game started relatively well, as it did against Pisa, with a first goal for Milan for Samuele Ricci, which really happy for him. Hits it well, relatively well, kind of hits after the corner's headed out, does well to kind of get it back into the striking path, and obviously a nice deflection, I think, kind of goes in his favor and ends up being an early goal for Milan, which is perfect, for us to start the game. But the concerns was the reaction after that, as opposed to Pisa, where we dropped off and settled for possession. This game was the complete opposite. We dropped off and just sat back and tried to absorb pressure. And I think there's a difference between absorbing pressure and what I saw in the first half, and if not the majority of this game, which was essentially just allowing Atalanta had to have 100% of the ball. The stats don't lie really in this game. One shot on target, 2 shots off target, a couple of block shots, XGs that I think I'm reading at like 0.33. Pretty poor from a creativity perspective. No one shone tonight, by the way, and we can have our sort of scapegoats coming out of the game. Some people were ridiculing Fofana, some people are ridiculing Santi Jimenez, some people are, another not a convincing game for Leao in the first half, who comes off in the start of the second half. No one played well at all in this fixture. So I'm not going to hear anything from, I say I'm not going to hear anything from a scapegoat perspective. However, I'm going to go into Santi Jimenez in my opinions, which I think have been validated so far this season, ever so shortly. But we'll close out for the rest of the game. So Atalanta come back into the game from a Lookman goal in the first half. Pretty poor. I think there's been question marks on Fofana's pressing onto Pasalic, who gets the assist. My concerns were more so on Tomori, who kind of over-pressed in the situation where there was ample amount of bodies. Fofana had the Pasalic shot covered if it was going to come. We know he's purely right-footed, so a left foot shot from distance at that range was not going to trouble Mike. So hence why he probably wasn't pressing to the degree that you would probably expect to press to be at that point outside the box. But Tomori presses out, which releases an opening for Lookman. And, there's a compilation of errors, Salamakers on the marking as well. So maybe there's a communicational piece between Tomori and Salamakers. Fofana is obviously not exempt of criticism from the goal as well. What could have been a little bit more better from a pressing perspective as well. But yeah, pretty poor from the back line there and conceding a weak goal. And Mike at the near post, Lookman hits it with such direction, such power that people were saying another near post goal for Mike to concede. But I think the mistakes for me more come from the back line, in particular Tomori. But you can have your opinion if you feel like it's more Fofana, more Salamakers, or even more Mike. But yeah, 1-1 going into the second half, where we just weren't creating anything. And the big story coming into the second half was Nkunku coming on, and we're thinking, okay, it's for Santi Jimenez, who's doing absolutely nothing all game. And it's for Rafael Leao. And, question marks now, is that an injury and another injury, which is very worrying, obviously, with these racking up. So Santi and Nkunku get a chance to pair up front, which I think is the first time since the Coppa Italia game, I believe so. I'm going to maybe correct me if I'm wrong on this one, or maybe I don't know if they've actually played at the same time together. If not, it might be minimal. And didn't really do much, I have to say. So I think Leao coming off, I like to think wasn't tactical, because what was replaced for that wasn't much difference other from that. So perhaps he got a little bit of a niggle and had to come off. Hopefully he can recover rapidly for the Roma game. Otherwise we are in trouble. But yeah, really, the second half was much of the same. I didn't really get a sense of direction of what we were trying to do on the ball. Yeah, I mean, like really watching that was tough. It was a tough watch. Probably the joint, or if not the second worst game of the season, compared after the Cremonese defeat, first game of the season. And the reason why I won't give it worst game of the season was because of the context of the game, what it is, Atalanta away. And like I said, a draw isn't a bad result, but performance wise, and obviously the injuries as well have to be taken into account. Once again, not having the depth to rely upon to make those changes isn't ideal for Max Allegri to try to shift the game's momentum. And yeah, look, not much happened. A couple of subs. We'll get onto Santi Jimenez, who comes off for injury as well. Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Loftus-Cheek as well played really well when he came on. He was more threatening in his cameo, whatever it was, like sort of 20, 25 minutes, maybe slightly more than that, I'm not too sure. Then Santi and the rest of the strike force were for the rest of the game. Did really well to win a couple of fouls. There's a bit where he headers the ball into the box, not even a half chance, a quarter chance, but at least there's some presence there with him. So it's really good to have Ruben Loftus-Cheek back into the side, into the squad, and I'm sure Max is going to have to use him in the next couple of games. But look, I'm going to probably spend the next 3 to 5 minutes on Santi Jimenez. Look, before I do, 1 point on the board. Big game against Roma now coming up. Game ends in a draw. Like I said, contextually, it's not a bad result, but we definitely need to hopefully get a good result against Roma, because we might find that momentum might be slipping. Good that we're hard to beat. Good that we didn't get a defeat. Like I said in the pub chat video with Lorenzo, I think the key thing is to not lose this game, and we didn't. So there's a slight positive there. I'm sure Max might allude to that, but the performance was pretty abysmal. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, coming on to Santi Jimenez, this all but validates my opinion of the guy. My concerns of him on leading the line and facilitating a presence up front validated in abundance. I think we get the chance to shift him in January. Max, anyone else who's watching this with a common sense in their head and not trying to fall in love with the whole, Milanista from childbirth sort of thing, whether it is, will understand it's the right move. That he's just not it, man. He's not it. And I'm not trying to scapegoat him, because it was horrendous performances across the board. But the guy's had ample opportunities. He's not scored a single Serie A goal this season. It's poor. And tonight is as tough of a game as it could have been to get that goal. But they're racking up, and now he's injured as well. Like, I mean, it's just not looking good for the guy. I don't. This was his opportunity personally. He had the opportunities before the international break. My concerns was with Leao coming back, and obviously Pulisic fit at the time, and then Kunku trying to kind of get into the side and get regular minutes. Where was his minutes going to come from with only Serie A to contend with? He's been fortunate with Pulisic being injured, with Kunku, not being 100% fit as well, and I think he was actually kind of injured as well for the Fiorentina game too. So he's had the opportunities, had the minutes, but I'm sorry, I am not. I'm out of the point of trying to pity and sympathize for players to make it a whole, fucking make a wish foundation for a player to get these minutes. I'm sorry, but personally, whether you like it or not, we should all be at a point where we're completely frustrated with the lack of conversion, or if not, aptitude for presence or something like that. You could sit here and go, where's the creativity for the player? Which I agree, we're not doing enough in that regard. But he's had the opportunities as well, and his XG is pretty poor from a from a conversion perspective. So I mean, the argument's kind of dead in the water there. But there's also kind of, when you see Loftus-Cheek come on and do a hell of a lot more in the number 9 position in his small cameo appearance, and it's not even his natural position. That's worrying. Like, simple things, just getting about, and the presence in the box. What are you doing as a striker for us in this formation? I really have concerns with it. I guarantee that Allegri's fed up with it. He will bite your hands off to make that change up in January. And yeah, I mean, this is, if anything, frustrating performance overall for the team, for the result. Love to get a win in this game, but if anything, it's just kind of stapled home the fact that we just can't rely on this player. And let me know what you think about Santi Jimenez. And like I said, don't want to make this about him, but really frustrated coming out of this game. I've got no positivity, and to bring, let alone the fact that he might be injured as well. When we got players going down left, right, and centre, it's not saying that's his fault as well, but it just compiles the issue further. So yeah, guys, let me know what you thought of the game. Not like I said, it's a result. You can take it whichever way. On paper, start of the season, you take a draw away from Atalanta, but obviously unbeaten still since that Cremonese game, which is also a positive. But performance-wise, individual-wise, it's obviously not getting good and not as good compared to obviously previous fixtures. So let me know what you guys thought. Have you got much optimism for the Roma game coming up this weekend? Who were your standout performances? Mine in particular was Loftus-Cheek, because it was refreshing to see him come on and play quite well, especially back from injury. Good to see Ricci get his first goal as well for Milan. So the two positives there from the midfield, but the rest of it was pretty, defensively did the best that they can. There were some concerns individually as well, but in attack, the wing-back positions, not much there. Let me know what you guys thought. So cool. Catch you guys next time. Forza Milan.